So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I come to my audience in the spirit of clarity, the spirit of lessons, and the spirit of wisdom. And these roads are not easy to travel. I could easily take this cover off and I could easily get a trillion views and be making a lot of money off of YouTube. But if I did that, after I've made all of the money, what would I have accomplished besides that? Because, see, what people don't realize is that even when you are materialistically successful, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with being materialistically successful, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a little bit of ego. I got a little bit of ego. But what's going to happen when you gain the whole world and you're not even connected to your spirit or your soul or the universe or God? You know what I'm saying? This isn't about materialistic wealth or money or abundance. No. Abundance is different and wealth is different from materialistic wealth. Abundance and wealth, let me break it down. Abundance is spiritual. Wealth is spiritual. Materialistic wealth is carnality. It comes from man. And materialistic wealth leaves a lot of people spiritually, emotionally, and mentally bankrupt. So I just want to say that first to get the juices flowing and what I really wanted to, talk about. So recently, I had a colonoscopy. Don't worry, not because there was anything wrong with me. I have a pretty good digestive system, you know. I always have. I've never had any digestive issues. But I'm 46 years old, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to get screened because they've lowered the age from 50 to 45. And but let me say this up front. I am not advocating for the medical industry. I am not advocating for Western medicine. That is not what I'm doing. I am not a big fan of medical whatever. I'm not a big fan of it, of the medical industry. I'm not. I'm not. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do. I'm not a big fan of the dentistry and all that. I don't like going to the dentist, and I had a tooth removed a couple of years ago. But I'm not a fan of it. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just what it is. So I got a colonoscopy, and they did mine in the hospital and at the hospital. And I noticed something when I was getting prepped to go into the procedure room to have the procedure. But let me back up for a moment. A lot of black men don't get colonoscopies for very stupid reasons. But it's interesting, they can sit online all day and they can talk about what black women should be doing and black women's health while most of them don't even take care of their own health. They can sit online all day indulging in nonsense, and these are men 45 plus a lot of times. But yet they're sitting around or sitting in bad health and won't do anything about it. But you're worried about women's health. when you don't even take care of your own. You know what I'm saying? That's the least you can do is get a colonoscopy because colon cancer that kills more black men than anyone else from what I'm told and from what I've researched. And that's a cancer you don't really have to die from. Now, the results of my colonoscopy, everything was clear. They told me, they said, "Sir, you have the perfect model colon." I said, "Really?" They said, "Yes. You don't have to come back and see us for another 10 years." But what I wanted to say is, because I have, well, I'll get to that later if I talk about it. But anyway, what I wanted to say is this. I noticed something when they were prepping me for the procedure. Everything went smoothly. And you know why everything went smoothly? I'm gonna tell you why. And excuse me, and I took notice of this. Everything went smoothly because in that department where they do that outpatient, procedure of a colonoscopy, because that's an outpatient thing, that's in and out, you know. Most of the medical staff that was tending to me, besides the doctor and the technician, they were men. But the nurses and everyone else, the anesthesiologists, all women. Even the transport people that, when they put, because, after something like that, they put you in a wheelchair. No, I'm not in a wheelchair, but you know how hospital procedure, when you have something done, they don't want you to walk because they don't want you to fall or whatever. I could walk. I could have walked fine, but they said, no, 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 just to be on the safe side because you were under anesthesia. So I don't want nobody thinking, oh, see a granny in a wheelchair. No. You know how people run with shit? No, that's not what I'm saying, to clarify. I walk fine. Um, all of them were women. Everywhere I looked in that department, it was women. And that is why I felt comfortable and that is why I felt safe. Now, the doctor, the gastroenterologist that actually performed my procedure, he was a man, and the technician was a man, but everybody else were women. And that told me something. That let me know that when women run stuff, primarily, things tend to run a lot more smoothly, especially if they are dedicated women. I'm not talking about a woman like Muriel Bowser. Not talking about her, because she ain't shit. Okay? Not talking about her. That's the mayor of DC. She ain't shit. She's up under ritual. So the reason, excuse me, the reason I'm bringing this up is this. I'm gonna tell you why I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because women are under attack. It doesn't matter what race you are. When you stand up for something, when you stand up for something, when you stand up for what's right, and when you stand up for truth, and when you stand up to bullies, especially when you stand up to bullying men, you get attacked. Isn't it interesting that Marjorie Taylor Greene is now resigning from Congress? When she had just said a few days ago she wasn't going to do it. But the report came out yesterday evening that she is now resigning from Congress. Isn't it interesting that Jasmine Crockett, even though I don't particularly care for her or Marjorie Taylor Greene, to be honest with you, because I think they're both on the flip, they're the flip side of the same coin, to be honest with you. And I don't give a fuck who gets offended. I talk about everybody. But putting that aside, isn't it interesting that now, at the same time that Marjorie Taylor Greene is receiving or was receiving death threats, that now Jasmine Crockett is also receiving racist death threats here at her DC congressional office? That's very interesting to me. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's resigning from Congress. She's receiving death threats. Jasmine Crockett resigning from Congress. I'm sorry. Jasmine Crockett receiving death threats. She's not resigning from Congress. What do these two have in common? Even though they're on the polar opposite sides of the spectrum, allegedly, but what do they have in common? They are both strong, outspoken women. And what they should have done, see, I'm going to tell you where Marjorie Taylor Greene went wrong. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she needed a black friend like me. She needed a black gay male friend like me to whisper in her ear, Marjorie, don't you go back with Jasmine Crockett. She will verbally annihilate you. She will verbally annihilate you and eviscerate you, because that was a setup. That whole, remember, that was that last year? That was last year when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crockett got into it. That was last year. That was a whole setup. That was laying the groundwork. Number one, they were being pitted against each other anyway for various reasons. See, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was blinded by the Trump effect. And remember, I told you Trump was attacking her from the air. Marjorie Taylor Greene came down to earth to launch attacks against him on earth. But you can't hit the air from earth. She should have morphed into air and water to go against Trump, because Trump had went into Sagittarius mode to attack her. But she should have morphed into water. She could have morphed into water to put that fire out. But she came down to earth to fight him when she should have morphed into water and came in like a motherfucking tsunami and took his motherfucking ass out. I'm using spiritual metaphors. I know that some people can't, they may not understand. I'm not degrading you because you can't, but people may not understand where I'm coming from. I'm talking in terms of spirit and astrology, because she's a Gemini and he's a Gemini. But the difference is most May Geminis, they're more connected to Earth because they have the Taurus influence. So she could have morphed into water. He's a June Gemini. They are more connected to fire. We're talking, just the elements. So, same thing with Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is an Aries. That's fire. And Marjorie could not combat her. She could not combat that because you keep trying to combat her in Earth. I would have told her that that whole thing between her and Jasmine Crockett, that was a setup for her downfall because Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't been right since. That was a setup. And now she's resigning from Congress because they're trying to get strong, powerful women out of Congress. They're trying to get strong, powerful women out of positions of power because they want it to be male dominated. And there's an undertone of ritualistic homosexuality that plays a part in this too. You all keep thinking that a lot of these men, especially a lot of those men up on Capitol Hill, you all keep thinking that they are just, so straight-laced and so Christian with these morals and values. And no, a lot of those men are ritualistic homosexuals. They marry women to keep up the facade of the perfect white Christian family. And black men do it too. It has nothing to do with being a Republican or a Democrat. It's ritual. All of them motherfuckers are connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And suffices to say, it's coming out now that Jeffrey Epstein had a deformity of his genitals. Some of his victims are coming out saying that his genital area was extremely deformed and smaller than a lemon, or in the shape of a lemon, very small and very, 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 very deformed. And it makes me wonder about some things. It makes me wonder, was Jeffrey Epstein even a man? Was he even a man? Or was he, how can I put this? Was he a trans man who was pretending to be a man? Or was he some type of hermaphrodite? And there's nothing against trans men or hermaphrodites. I'm just trying to peel back the layers of what was this man and what is the controversy surrounding this man. Not saying he was or wasn't, but I'm just asking questions because that's what a good occultist does. We investigate, we ask questions. I'm an investigative occultist that also practices, that also manipulates my own reality. So I do it all. But I have questions about the world that we live in and the things that are going on in it. And how more and more you see women that are coming under attack. I don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not a big fan of Jasmine Crockett. But I will recognize their credentials and give them credit for being strong, outspoken women. And I do think that they were pitted against each other. I do. And I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning from office, I'm resigning from Congress, I think that's a bad fucking omen, considering how strong and powerful and outspoken she was and is. So my question is, that fallout, that's a fallout. So what's coming next? Because something else is going to come down the pipeline. What's coming next? Oh, let me tell you. Let me tell you. See, there are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. The Department of Education. Let me tell you what's happening next. This is why they're gutting the Department of Education, because this is an attack on women. Because they know that for most women, education is a pathway to independence and freedom. They're trying to force women into a system of poverty and lack of education. They're trying to take women back to the 1900s under the Mister effect and the Seeley effect, where women couldn't get an education, where they had to solely depend on men for their survival. Well, let me tell you something, honey. Let me tell you something. This motherfucker that stay with me, that's supposed to be my partner, let me tell you something. I'm going to put my own business out there. Let me tell you about men. They ain't shit. They ain't shit. They are unreliable. They are narcissistic. They are sociopathic. Not all men. Let me be clear, not all men. But a large percentage of them. They're narcissistic. They're sociopathic. They're psychopathic. And they don't give a fuck about nobody but themselves. Do you know that after my procedure, number one, he didn't even take me to get my colonoscopy. He didn't even take me. But they normally want someone to be home with you after that procedure for about 24 hours. And then after that, you can go on about your business. This motherfucker couldn't even do that. But you know what? I have the spirit that always finds a way for me to be okay. And this motherfucker that's supposed to be my partner, he's 58 years old. He's an old motherfucker. So when I hear women say, do men change when they get older, they mellow out? To answer your question, ladies, no, they don't. They are just as narcissistic, they are just as entitled, and they are just as predatory as they were when they were younger. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they get worse as they get older. So no, they ain't shit. The Department of Education is, let me tell you what they're doing. And this is very serious. The Department of Education says nursing is no longer a professional degree. Going to nursing school will no longer be looked at as a I'm going to say in my own words, a prestigious profession. Are you fucking kidding me? Sometimes, if not most of the times, nurses know more about what's going on than the doctors do. Because it was the when I had my colonoscopy, that's why I brought that up about my colonoscopy. There were I'm so glad there were no male nurses. I don't vibe with men on certain levels, especially other black men, because they have a sociopathic, psychopathic mentality. It doesn't matter how nice you are to them, it doesn't matter how kind you treat them. They're men. And sometimes men, we can be corrupt. I don't know if it's genetic. I don't know what it is, but there's a corruption there. Not saying that women can't be corrupt, because there are a lot of corrupt, evil women too. Of course there is. And most of those corrupt, evil women, they're the ones who encourage corrupt, evil men. They're the ones who encourage corrupt, evil men to try to, I'm sorry, not try to, they're the ones who encourage and facilitate corrupt, evil men to oppress other women. So no, I'm aware it's on both sides of the spectrum, but I'm gay, so I deal with men. and I understand their psychosis. You know what? I'm gonna say this too. A lot of men, especially a lot of black men, they don't like getting colonoscopies because one of the reasons I've heard is they don't want somebody going in their rectum. Well, first of all, you don't even know that they're going in your rectum. They put you to sleep. They put you under anesthesia. You don't feel nothing. I didn't feel nothing. When that doctor, the anesthesiologist, she was a white woman. Most of my nurses were white and one was Asian. But most of them were white and they were absolutely wonderful, wonderful to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they were wonderful because they were white. I'm just saying, I'm just bringing up everything so you can get the full scope. When that anesthesiologist stuck that needle in my IV, I was gone. It didn't take no time. And I was trying to raise my head up and they said, "Sir, no, lay down, lay down, lay down." And I laid down. When they said lay down, I was out. Next thing you know, I was waking up in the recovery room, and the nurse there, she was a black young girl. They had me right next to her desk, and she was just typing in the computer, and I was like, "Oh, that's it?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's it." But one of the reasons that a lot of black men say they don't want to get a colonoscopy is because they don't want the doctor going up in their rectum. Well, how about this? I figured it out. I said, "Oh, they don't want the doctor going up in their rectum because they don't want them to see, or they don't want them to suspect." Because you know, if a doctor goes in your rectum, because that is how or your anus, they go through the anus to get to the colon. And I'm sorry for being graphic, but if they go through your anus, they will know whether you have anal sex or not. They will know. They will know. See, I'm currently not having any anal sex because I'm not a big proponent of anal sex. You know what I'm saying? And if I do have anal sex, it has to be with someone that I really, really love and trust. I don't really, really love and trust this motherfucker that I'm with. I don't really love and trust him. And as a matter of fact, he getting ready to get the fuck up out my house pretty soon. Pretty soon, I gotta order me some supplies, and I'm gonna start getting to work. I'm gonna get it popping. I'm gonna get this motherfucker up out of my house. Even if I have, y'all know what I mean when I'm gonna get me some stuff. He gonna get up out my house. No, I'm not talking about doing nothing to him physically. I'm talking about the spirit. He gonna get the fuck up out my house. I got a plan, honey. I'm a Virgo. I always think ahead, and I'm gonna sneak attack him. But they don't want people. I figured it out. I said, it's not so much they are scared of the procedure, they are afraid of what those doctors may see because they will know if you've been having anal sex. Because the only thing that they did find when they did my colonoscopy, and I know this may be too much information, I have hemorrhoids. But a lot of people have hemorrhoids. They're harmless, but I have like hemorrhoids, ingrown hemorrhoids. And that's because a lot of times when I'm going to the bathroom, I may strain or something. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people have those. So if they saw that, they definitely would be able to see if you're having anal sex. So can you imagine a man? Can you imagine a man who's supposed to be straight going to get a colonoscopy? The doctor is going up in his rectum and he can see certain abnormalities of the anus and the rectum that indicate there has been penetration or tearing of the anal corridor, whatever you want to call it, or the entrance of the anus. They could see what's been going on. Can you imagine a married man and then the doctor comes back out to his wife and say, "Ma'am, such and such and such and such, or the doctor has questions for the man and ask him, sir, we found that there is evidence of some form of penetration of your anus that has been causing such and such and such and such. That's why a lot of y'all niggas don't want to get no colonoscopy. That's why. And I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. But I think it has more to do with that, with a lot of them being on the DL, and they want to keep that secret. And by them going up in your anus, your secret will be exposed. Because when they go up in your anus and your rectum, they can see everything. And see, that's another thing too. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. That's why I like that young man. What's his name? The DL Whisperer. I like that young man. I like him. I like him. He speaks nothing but the truth about DL men. He speaks nothing but the truth. That young, I don't know how old he is, but he looks very young to me. So that's why I'm calling him a young man. That young man is telling nothing but the truth. The DL Whisperer, you all need to go and look him up on Facebook. People are getting mad because of the things he's saying about DL men. Well, it's the truth. It is the absolute truth. But that is why they don't want to get colonoscopies, because it may expose what's going on with them in the dark. They are trying to gut the Department of Education, and they are trying to force women to go back to the 1900s where they had to solely depend on men. That is why they want to take away, well, not take away, but they want to limit the effect of nursing and its capability to help a woman to make a living. Because nurses make pretty good money. This is why I said at the beginning of the video, this is an attack on women. All of this shit is an undercurrent and an undertone attack on women. When they were fucking with the SNAP benefits, that was an attack on women and children. And then, like I said, there are toxic women who facilitate this stuff that men do, like that bitch Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture. That ugly face, homie face bitch, she wanted to make everyone reapply for SNAP benefits. But guess what? Now they're saying they're not going to do that. I know you're not going to do that. Spirit says, no, bitch, you're not going to do that. Remember, I said there are women that facilitate these types of behaviors. In these type of toxic men. She's one of them. Anytime that you would go along with a man that is trying to cause hunger and famine in women and children. Because we all know that SNAP feeds a lot of women and children. We all know that. So that is why I say this is an attack on women. This is an attack on the divine feminine. No matter how you feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene, no matter how you feel about Jasmine Crockett, you have to look at the undertone and the under, the underlining issue or the undercurrent of what's going on. We're dealing with ritualistic homosexuality because how come no one really picked up in the movie The Color Purple? Mr. was a homosexual. He was a DL homosexual. That was the subliminal context. He hated women. He hated Celie and he hated Suge. He hated, well, he had a love-hate relationship with Suge Avery. But he hated Celie. He hated her. His characteristics fit the perfect description for the DL man. Andrew Tate, same thing. The perfect description for the DL man. I can go down the list. So Andrew Tate's brother, same thing. These men hate women. A lot of these DL men are the ones behind a lot of the sex trafficking of minors and women and stuff like that. They do all types of shit. They are corrupt by nature. And I don't mean by outside nature, like the trees, the stars, the water. No, I'm talking about their nature is corrupt. They are corrupt within their own nature. And they feel like that women have too much power in the United States. So what they do is this. Let me tell you what they do. They put people, they put certain women in positions of power to make women feel safe, to make you feel comfortable. Oh, if I see her in that position, then that means I can get there too. But no. Like, for example, Muriel Bowser was put in place. She was put in place to tear down the history and the ancestral frequencies of Washington, D.C. She gutted D.C. and she made it less affordable for the indigenous people that live there. And I'm talking about the indigenous Black people as well as the indigenous Hispanic people who had been here forever. I'm not talking about illegal immigrants. I'm talking about the Spanish people that have roots right here as Native Americans. She uprooted them too. That is why when Nancy Mace, I don't like her either. I don't like that homie face bitch either. But that's why when Representative Nancy Mace, I'll be nice, when she dug in Muriel Bowser's ass, I was so happy. Because what Nancy Mace asked her, do you think that DC is systemically racist? And I would have said, you know what, Representative Mace? It is systemically racist. But it's not just white people that are facilitating systemic racism in DC. It's the Black people that run the city as well. And they have always done it. They have always done it. Just like one of the reasons, even though I don't agree with everything that's happening with the Department of Education, but one of the reasons they claim that they're closing the Department of Education is because of fraud and waste. And I'm going to tell you, some of these agencies, some of these agencies that get funds allocated to them from the Department of Education, for example, vocational rehabilitation, Some of these state agencies, they misappropriate those funds and they don't use those funds to help the people that it's supposed to help, or they will discriminate against you. And guess who was running most of those vocational rehabilitation programs? Black people in the DC area. Corrupt women that were backing up and facilitating corrupt men. So they'll make you think because you see another woman in this position, or oh no, so I can get it too. No, no. They're in that position for an agenda. And a lot of times they're in that position because they are there to help tear down women and children a lot of times, or to facilitate keeping women and children in poverty. That is why I say this is an attack on women. All of this shit that's going on, this is an attack on women. And even though I'm not a Kamala Harris fan, I'm not a Kamala Harris fan either. I'm not a fan of any politicians per se. But her losing the election last year, that was an attack on women too. That was a direct attack on women. I'm not saying she would have been a better choice. I'm not saying she would have been worse. For me, it's the middle. It's the middle point. Looking at the undercurrent and the undertone of the agenda that's in place, which is to attack women. Because if a woman becomes president, that's going to lift the whole frequency up. And remember when I told you that usually when women run things, things run a lot more smoothly. A woman can, and I heard one of my spiritual constituents say this, and she's absolutely right. Women can be pregnant, have 5 kids, hold down a full time job, come home, cook, clean, maintain the household, make sure every child is fed, and still make sure she has time to tend to her unborn child while keeping everyone safe in her home. See, women can multitask like that. Men, we get frustrated. If you ask us to do one fucking thing, like can you be home with me for one day after a procedure that I had? They get frustrated over that. We are seeing right in front of our faces how men cannot really handle pressure. We've been seeing it for generations. That's why the world is in so much turmoil that it's in now. Because they have these unpredictable, unstable men that are in positions of power, like a Umar Johnson. From the government on down to the Pan African movement, which I don't see much difference in Pan Africanism now than being in the KKK. Because both groups of men they are discriminatory, they're homophobic, they're anti-gay. I'm not saying that you're supposed to have gay people up in your whatever, but at least show some compassion. But that's right, you all are afraid of getting colonoscopies. I wonder, has Dr. Umar Johnson had a colonoscopy? What is he hiding up there? Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. Babatunde Alakunde. This is Brother Babatunde Balakunde. What's going on? What's going on up in your Afatunde? That's what I want to ask him. What you hiding up in there? Let me stop. No, let me stop. I ain't gonna say that. But I'm serious. I am serious. They want to destroy the woman's capability of taking care of herself and taking care of her children. That's why they're doing all this shit with nursing. They're trying to downgrade nursing so they won't have to pay women the amount of money that they pay them now. But then what they're going to do is, let me tell you what's going to happen. Let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to gut nursing like they're doing. They're going to gut nursing and they're going to make sure that nursing does not pay as much for women. But then a lot of men are going to start becoming nurses and they're going to start paying them the money that the women should have been getting paid. Remember what they did back during the Salem witch trials? A lot of those women were midwives, they were delivering babies, they were healers, they were curing diseases. And then the male establishment, they came in, killed them off, called them witches, took their spell work and turned it into the medical field so they could make a profit off of it. They are deconstructing the nursing field so they can restructure it and put it up under a more masculine frequency. And that's going to fuck a lot of people up. I don't want no male nurse. I don't want no male nurse. I'm sorry. I know. Now, a doctor, I can deal with a male doctor, but a nurse, a male nurse, no. Men are too volatile. They are too volatile. Now, I know what you all are going to say. Well, what about that nurse in that viral clip that sat there and watched that black woman go into labor right in front of her practically, or she was going into labor and she treated that woman so badly? Well, there's always a rotten bunch somewhere. And you got to remember, they're in Texas. Texas is very, very racist. But see, I'm gonna show you something. See, people have to look at the bigger picture and the agenda. That that viral moment, that viral video showing that nurse, that white nurse doing that, that's also part of the agenda to say, hey, listen, you see why we're gutting nursing? You see why we're downgrading nursing? See, it's all coming out in at the same time because it's a ritual. That's ritualistically um guided. It's no coincidence that that video is coming out around the same time that the Department of Education wants to basically downgrade nursing from a profession. That's no coincidence. That's being done intentionally because they want to restructure nursing and put it up under a masculine frequency. And then more men are going to start becoming nurses. I know there are male nurses now, but now even more so, men are going to start becoming nurses. And then they're going to pay the men the money that they should have been paying the women. We all know that most nurses are women. It doesn't matter what the race is, most nurses are women. Okay? Most nurses are women. And that's for a reason. Just like a lot of men are doctors. Everything has its own phylum. But now they want to disrupt that because they want to attack the woman here in this country. So while you may be rejoicing about what's happening to Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's always a side effect or an under effect or a reason why this is happening. And you have to look at the bigger picture. You can still dislike her politics and you can still dislike her, but this is about a bigger picture about them attacking women. Food for thought. Now, let's get into a little mess. Candy Burris and her husband Todd have filed for divorce. I knew that that marriage was doomed when it first started. Number one, number one, this is why I am against threesomes in marriage and threesomes and all of that stuff in relationships. Relationships are already complicated and complex on their own. You don't need to add any other parties to it. You feel what I'm saying? Todd and Candy were known for having or living in, I'm going to say, the polyamorous life. And I knew eventually that that would take a toll on their marriage. I don't want to bring nobody in my bedroom, in my bed. I don't. And I'm very particular about who I let in my bedroom anyway, or in my bed anyway. And it's not always about looks, it's about energy, frequency, and vibration. So they are divorcing after 11 years of marriage. But the marriage was doomed from the start. And I'm going to tell you why, and it coincides with everything that we've been talking about in this discussion. Number one, number one, see, this is where a lot of women make a mistake. And I'm not trying to tell women what to do because I'm not a woman. But as an outsider looking in, this is where a lot of women make a mistake. If you are a woman and you got a lot of money, you should never marry down. You should always marry a man that has a lot more money than you. See, Candy married Todd, and Todd was not on her level financially. So he's going to have more to gain from marrying her than she's going to gain from marrying him. And see, a lot of people got mad at Mama Joyce. A lot of people got mad at Mama Joyce when she was trying to tell Candy that Todd wasn't shit. Number one, he's a Leo. And Leo men are sneaky, they are users, they are egotistical, and they are psychopathic and sociopathic. I don't like them. This, my so called partner, he's a Leo. And they are users, they ain't shit. They are emotionally bankrupt. They have no conscience. And I'm talking about the men. Todd knew exactly what he was doing. I don't think Todd ever loved Candy, in my opinion. When Candy would try to have conversations with him about concerns she would have, he would always, same thing with my friend, same thing with this motherfucker would do, he would always divert it to something so he could flip it and make it her fault. That's just like that time, that time when Todd's mother, Miss Sharon, and Mama Joyce got into it. And then Candy and Todd, they went to New York to visit Miss Sharon. This was right before she died. They went to New York to visit her. And it was like Todd and his mom were jumping on Candy because they wanted Candy to control her mother. And Candy was like, that's still my mother. And I'm going to ride with her regardless. And you know what? That's how she's supposed to roll. So to me, the marriage was doomed from the start. Number one, Candy is a woman that had more money than him. And I think that Todd resented her for that. Even though he's benefiting from it. See, that's how Leo men are. Even if they're benefiting from what you have, they will still resent you. They will sit up in your face, have a whole issue with you, and still resent you. Like this motherfucker that lives with me, who's getting ready to get the fuck out my house pretty soon. They resent you because, let me be clear, even though I'm not a woman, I got more than him because this is my condo. This is my shit. This motherfucker almost 60 years old and don't even have his own place. So I have to take my own advice. When you, especially, but see, I'm a man, so it's different. I'm a man. I'm talking about women. When you are a woman and you make more money than a man, I'm sorry, and you make a lot of money, then yes, you should find a man that's making at least equal to you or more than you. Because those niggas that make less than you, a lot of them are jealous, petty, egotistical, and a lot of them are driven by ulterior motives. And no matter what they say, I don't mind if a woman makes more money than me. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You get jealous if a woman makes more money than you. Because all I see, just for example, I love me some Leslie Jones, a comedian. I think Leslie Jones is absolutely stunning. I think she's a beautiful, dark-skinned woman. And she's a Virgo like me. I commend her stance of how she feels about men. She said, why wouldn't a man want me? I got money, I can fight. And she said, if you're not going to be part of my peace, you can be part of my door. And she said she's tired of men telling her that she's masculine. She said, okay, I'll take that. When you going to find your masculinity, nigga? Oh, you know, men don't like her. Oh, she's too masculine. Oh, and all the while you're calling her masculine, but you don't want that doctor going up to. Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. So there's an issue, but they don't like Leslie Jones because I saw a lot of men comment, "Well, men, we don't want no woman that basically men don't want no woman." See, here's the thing. On one hand, men, this is why I say a lot of men, black men in particular, are mentally unstable because, for example, when I watch Pop the Balloon, you will hear men say, "Well, what do you bring to the table, financially?" So if a woman says, "Well, I have a PhD in such and such, or I have a master's degree in such and I make, $250,000 a year, and I own my own business," and then they'll start backtracking, "Well, you too masculine for me." Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all weirdos? So a woman that makes too much money is too masculine, but if she doesn't make enough money, she's a thought and she's a bum ass woman, right? Like, make up your fucking match. Pick your struggle. So if a woman does have money, you're intimidated by her and you accuse her of trying to outdo a man. Me personally, I think no, it ain't no me personally. Women are supposed to have more money than men. Call me a simp, call me whatever. Women are supposed to have more money than men. Women are supposed to be more abundant than men. So if I have, let me, if the goddess of the universe blesses me with 300 billion in my bank account, I'll take that. But women should have quadrillions and quadrillions of abundance and prosperity in theirs. Women are designed to have more money. But what has happened is you have these bitch ass men who removed women, killed them all, put them under ritual to make them believe that they have to worship a man in order to get money when women are the money, women are the abundance, women are the prosperity. Feminine energy is abundance, it is wealth. So if you don't have enough money as a woman, you're a bum and you're a gold digger and you're trying to use men. And I don't want no woman that ain't can't bring nothing to the table. But then you get a woman, "Well, I make more money than you. I make $300,000 a year." "Oh, you trying to outdo the man. You masculine." Why aren't some of these motherfuckers locked up in mental institutions? Because that's exactly where they need to be. They are unstable. And that's why they stay broke and broken, even if they do have money. If I was a straight man and my wife made more money than me and we had a good relationship, I would keep my motherfucking mouth shut. If my even, even me being gay, if I had a partner that made more money than me, I am not going to be jealous. I am not a jealous person. But that shows you how jealous a lot of these so-called straight men are. They are very jealous, envious people, and they don't. This is why they're gutting a lot of these things now, like making nursing less professional because they don't want women making money. But I saw the deterioration of Todd and Candy's marriage. The writing has been on the wall for that for years. And let me tell you something. They have been going through a hard time for years. It ain't just start. They've been going through a hard time for years. I'm getting hot flashes, y'all. I need to fan myself. Anyway, that's my talk of the day. Anyway, this is the occult view, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.